And my guest this morning is Zenobia Lundy. Zenobia Lundy was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and educated in Philadelphia. This is her second collection of poetry. Her first collection of poetry is entitled Reflections of Us. She travels the country doing book fairs and speaking engagements. She enjoys reading her poetry to live audiences. Zenobia is a lifelong poet, just recently entering the realm of publication. Her work has appeared in Drexel University's Writers' Room 2024 Anthology edition in Philadelphia. She continues to be inspired by life in the urban environment in which she lives. Zenobia is currently completing her Bachelor of Arts degree in creative writing at Rosemont College and lives in Philadelphia with her husband, Bill, and their cat, Lucky. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphone, Zenobia Lundy. Zenobia, good morning again.
Good morning, Mark, and the audience. Good morning.
All right, now Zenobia is another author I met at the Harlem Book Fair about a month or so ago. I think it was that first Saturday in September. And Zenobia was one of the authors that I had the opportunity to meet and got her book to come on the show. And I tell you, that was a really good day for me because the last few interviews have been authors I met at the Harlem Book Fair. And that was my purpose for going, other than I love books. But I really wanted to meet some authors to get them scheduled on the show, and Zenobia is one of them. So Zenobia, I don't work off of a question list, but I do work our audience up to kind of like, how did this all begin to where we are now? And I noticed in your bio, you said you were a lifelong poet. So that's where we're going to kind of start. Like, okay, lifelong poet. So that means you started as a child, or kind of where did this whole love of poetry come from?
Mark, I started basically when I think back as a teenager. I was always writing. Always had notebooks or scribbles of paper with quotes or poetry on it. I really didn't know about publication at that point, but I knew I loved to write. So, of course, like most people, I had a family. I had kids to raise. I had a job to go to. So I had to do all of that stuff. Plus, I always wrote. I mean, if I was in church, I'd write on the back of the church programs. If I was at work, I'd be writing on the Post-it notes. So, and I had a million notebooks with writings in it. So that's why I always say I've always been a lifelong writer.
So in terms of...
And I love to write. So, I mean, of course, English was my favorite subject in school. And as you know, all writers are readers.
That is correct.
All writers are readers. So I love to read. I always had books. I mean, I don't go out and not come back in with a book, which is not a good thing for my house. But I do donate a lot of books out also.
Well, you know what? I'm the same way. And at one point, I was the exact same way when it came to paper books and hard copies. Now that's the way it is in my iPad. Because at this point, now I download my books. So I have a library in my iPad, about 2,000 books in there. That's on the Kindle app. It's close. It's getting close. I know I was somewhere around 1,600 at one point, and I think I've downloaded at least probably another couple hundred books since then. So I'm getting close. If it's not there, I'm getting closer to that.
Right. So Mark, you read your books on your Kindle?
Yes.
Okay.
And
my thing is, as long as you read.
That is exactly right. Because interestingly enough, I didn't think I was going to like downloading the books on the Kindle. Because like you, I never went anywhere without a book. I mean, I always carried a bag of books with me. And I didn't go anywhere without books, always had. And then when the Kindle came out, and I'm actually on my iPad with the Kindle app. When that came out, I said, well, let me try it. And then what that did was, because my iPad goes me everywhere I go nowhere without the iPad. So I always, at any downtime, anytime, if I'm waiting on an appointment, if I'm at the doctor's office, I'm anywhere I'm at, whenever I'm sitting there waiting, I got a book open.
Right. And there's a lot of downtime as far as waiting.
It sure is.
So you're going to have to wait. You're definitely going to have to wait somewhere. Yep, and I'm the same way.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. Most writers really do love to read, but they're connected. It's rare that I come across an author that didn't like to read, or maybe they didn't like it whenever they were a child, but as they grew older, they began to love reading. So that's where it connected. So now your genre, I mean, it's kind of like, because you said you were a lifelong poet. Have you, moved into novels or anything like that, or is poetry your thing?
Poetry really is my thing. I mean, it's a poem in my first book that I wrote that says, I really don't think in paragraphs. And, everybody tells me, Zenobia, from poetry to fiction is an easy transition. But I don't know if I'm actually wired that way, because I'm an artist. I mean, I love creating flower arrangements. I'm an urban gardener. I turned a vacant lot into a garden. So that creative part, I'm always moving from one thing to another. So possibly down the line, that could definitely be in my future. But at this stage of it, poetry is really my thing.
All right, so I'm looking here. I'm on the website. I'm actually seeing your book, Reflections of Us, a poetry collection, Zenobia. Now, I'm looking at your cover. I see on the top, there's and both, I mean, I can tell by the tone of the color on there, you're trying to get a certain feel in terms of time period. So I see the lady in the hat on the top and the little girl on the bottom.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what's going on there on the cover.
Yeah, and you know what? I have to be honest with you, Mark. The cover of my book, I think a lot of people buy the book because of the cover. And, there's an old saying, I know everybody knows, don't judge a book by a cover. But I think the cover of a book is very important. And
I agree.
That's kind of like the artist in me. That's the most important thing when I'm doing a book. I put a lot of time and effort. And my second book, Prose and Light, I think it must have taken me at least almost 2 months, because I have an image in my head of what I actually want the cover to be. So it takes me a while to put it all together. But going back to the cover on Reflections of Us, I'm married, and my husband had lost, when this book was in the formative stages, my husband had lost his mother. And you know how that goes when you're going through all their things and you come across old photographs.
Right.
Inside my book is a poem dedicated to Langston Hughes, that era, and in Harlem. And I came across the photograph of her, and I could just see it was not his mother, his grandmother. I could just see her strolling around in Harlem in that hat. So I ended up putting that photograph of the lady on the top next to the poem. And then the other photograph is just a random photo. I'm one of those people, I'm always out going in thrift shops and bookstores. And I came across the photograph of the little girl and her eyes. Her eyes really captivated me.
Right.
Really, really captivated me. So it was a postcard from like the turn of the century. So I got the postcard, and whenever you use photography, you have to get permission.
Correct.
But this photograph was around the turn of the century, so I'm pretty sure she wasn't still alive. But I get so many questions about those two images. Is that you? No, that's not me. Is that you? Is that your mother on top? No, that's not my mother. But I do. I get a lot of comments. And the graphic artist, Tim Olson, he did, I have been collecting images forever for covers. And he put that together. And it's a funny story behind it is, of course, I have grown children, too. And my son is a comedian on the West Coast. And this was one of the covers that was in the running. And I sent it to him, and I said, hey, what do you think about this cover? And the next thing I knew, it was on Instagram. So I was like, okay, I guess that's going to be the cover. But, I love poetry and I like working on the books because there's a story behind every poem. There's a story behind every cover. Life is really full of stories, and I just enjoy living. And so, writing for me is just such a joy. I mean, I worked in, I think I said in my intro, I worked in corporate America for years. because I had kids to put through college like everybody. But after that was done, I was like, okay, now it's time to do me.
Right.
And when you do you, the money is kind of like second nature, because the joy you get from seeing people pick up your book, and meeting people like you, Mark, you can't put a price tag on that.
Oh, I could not agree with you more. You're absolutely right. And I'm going to go back to what we were talking about. I'm going to come back to what we're talking about now, but I'm going to go back to the cover, because we were talking about that. Covers, and you have the right attitude and the right idea. The cover is what makes or break whether or not somebody takes the book or not. Because when they go to the festival or the fair or the open mic or the bookstore or the website, they're going to look at that cover, and that's what's going to catch their eye. And then they're going to, if they're doing it generally the way that we teach kids in school, whenever they're previewing a book, they're going to look at the front cover, then they're going to turn to the back. And they're going to, if there's anything on the back, they're going to read the summary of it, or either the history or either the autobiography, the author. Then we tell them to look at the table of contents, and we tell them to kind of skim through the book, and then you make your decision. So that's what folks are going to do whenever they pick up your book. So that's why I say it caught as soon as it caught. First off, like I said, the coloring lets me know that we're talking antique. We're talking early. We're talking a long time ago, based on, how the photos look, because that's how old photos look. It has that color on there, and it matches your title, Reflections of Us. And you're talking about life, so it's kind of like life from both sides, from the child as well as the adult. The facial expression, like I said, the little girl, that's you can interpret her facial expression a lot of different ways.
And you can, and that was the whole idea, and that's why that photograph of her captivated me. It's just something about the eyes. You cannot pinpoint basically what she's thinking. Yeah, it's
Correct.
No way.
Correct.
Is she mad? Is she sad?
Exactly.
And the eyes say a lot. This cover really conveys how much the eyes say to you. I was very, very, like I said, when I do the cover, I usually celebrate at the end of finally getting the cover done.
Right.
Because I studied photography, as a matter of fact, for a while. As a matter of fact, which is really ironic. I met my husband there. But photographs to me are so special. As a matter of fact, is a poem in my second book, Prose and Light, entitled The Photograph. And the few times I have read it, people really, you have to remember, after you're gone, the only really thing left of you is going to be that photograph.
Correct.
That somebody has. And people will kind of shy away from talking about death, but it's inevitable. So that photograph is going to be here long after you're gone. So, of course, both of these people on the cover are gone, but you see their photograph is still impacting audiences.
No, you're absolutely right. It's interesting that you would say that, because my mother passed away May of this year, May 14th, and her birthday is actually today. And so now
my goodness.
I went on Facebook, and in my story is a picture of her. Interestingly, it's a picture of her older, and it's a picture of her whenever she was like 2 or 3 years old. It's a side-by-side shot. She was like 2 or 3 years old, and then that's the picture on the left, and the one on the right of her when she was in her 70s or 80s. But yes, they do. And you're absolutely right. When we are gone, that is the only representation, other than in people's minds, that folks will have of you are their photos. So you're absolutely right.
And I don't mean to interject this, but it's just so apropos for the moment. I want to read to you.
Oh, please, because, I was going to invite you to do that.
We'll do it later, but I will want to read to you the poem that's in the second book entitled The Photograph. It's entitled The Photograph. I wipe the dust away time and time again and remember you for all that remains in this frozen smile in time. We all become the photograph on the wall. Who will wipe the dust away for me? Who will look and remember? Whose mantle or nightstand will hold my smile? For I will someday become the photograph on the wall. So I write in prose, but
so anytime I have my poets on the line, listening audience knows we don't clap hands, because when you go to spoken word, or whenever you go to what do they call it? Mic night? What do you call it? You said open mic. Yeah. We don't clap hands. We snap fingers. So after you finish that, I'm snapping my fingers. But that is so true. The poem is real. The poem is true. Like once we're gone, that's about it. Other than, like I said, the memories in your mind. But as far as anything hard copy, the photo is it.
It is. It really is. And you know how much, you see all the devastation you have in different parts of the country recently because of storms. But the one thing people run back for, they come back for those photographs.
That's right.
They go back for those photographs. So I'm getting ready to think, boy, I need to put my photographs in a strong box, so I can, always have them, because that's all you'll have in the end.
That is absolutely right. So you've been writing. All right, where does the inspiration from your poems come from? Because I'm looking at it says, Philadelphia poet Zenobia's debut collection spans generations of Black Americans, weaving their lives as well as her own into a rich tapestry. In spare, direct language, Zenobia invites us to see reflections of our own lives in each image and story where the beauty of language transforms pain and grief, and where at the core of each and every one of us rests the capacity for compassion, joy, and love. Where do the inspirations come from?
Wow, where did that come from? Whose website did that come off of?
I think that's on your publisher's site. That's on the Tree of Life site.
Okay, great. That was beautiful. And I have to give kudos out this morning to my first editor, Joy Stocky. And then I'll answer your question. And people always say, well, how did you get into it? And I think, like I said, there's a story behind everything. When I was it was 20 years ago when I was writing, I kind of reached out to a lot of publishers and editors, and I got tons of rejection letters like everybody does in any industry. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to just keep writing. So I just kept
That's
writing.
Right.
I was like, hey, I'm going to just keep writing. Look, y'all can reject me if you want to. That's why people always say, follow your dreams. Hey.
That's right.
So anyway, COVID happened. And, a lot of bad things happened with COVID. But, I got sent home by the federal government, and they was like, okay, don't come back to work. We're going to pay you, but you stay home. I'm like, okay, that works for me. So that was before Reflections of Us. So I was like, well, now I need a publisher again. I'm going to get this together. If I don't do it now while I'm locked in the house, I have no excuse. So I found a letter, an email from one of the first people I had contacted for my book. And it was an AOL address, so you know how old it was. So I reached out to Joy Stocky, who is the editor-publisher of Tree of Life, and I said, well, I probably won't get this response because you probably don't have the same email address. But long story short, she got back to me, and she walked me through the whole process. And I am where I am today because of Joy Stocky and Tree of Life Publishing. And having a good publishing company behind you is so important. But I just wanted to say that about her. You asked me what inspires me. And I have to say, writers and poets and painters and photographers, we are all artists. And if
Correct.
you ask any artist, they will say, and I know I say it, life itself inspires me. I'm inspired by, every time I walk outside, I'm inspired by the weather, how it can be so unpredictable, by people that I meet on the street. I'm just inspired by life because the title of this book originally, when I thought about it years and years ago, was Reflections of Me. But so many things happened in America, George Floyd, Sean Bell, and I am the war in Gaza. All of those things inspire me to write, and I've written about every incident that I just mentioned. I went to a book signing by another, and I support other authors. I go to art shows,
Right?
Because through meeting them, through listening to them, and some of my biggest inspiration has come from other artists, from just being out. As an artist and a writer, you have to be out there. No matter, that's your job, to reflect in your work the times we live in. Because, I've been a witness to, I live in Philadelphia, and I don't know if you know the story about Philadelphia and the move. So I lived through move.
Right. Oh, I remember Move.
The only city,
yeah. I remember that.
City in America that they ever dropped a bomb on a residential
Correct.
neighborhood.
That's right.
So, I mean, I remember the day I walked out my house and the embers from that bombing were floating through the air. I mean, I've lived through a lot of tragic events in Philadelphia and in America. So, I mean, sometimes the things that inspires me are death, and I hate this. And it is life also that inspires me. So, I mean, I wrote about George Floyd, and you see every artist has painted, pictures around George Floyd. It's where your heart is. And when I write, and I used to post it, I don't know where that posted is now, but the goal is to write from your heart. You as a writer, and all artists or painters will tell you, you can stand in front of a blank canvas and nothing happens. I can pick up a pen and blank piece of paper and nothing. And then I can go outside or hear something or see a child smile and write something in 5 minutes that's so impactful to me and other people. So it's all about what touches you. And I can go for weeks and not write.
Right.
And I can, in one day, write 5 pieces.
Right.
So
it's interesting.
When you become a writer or you start writing, and all writers will tell you, it becomes who you are.
Right.
You always have to have a pen. People will tell you, I will take your pen in a heartbeat. I don't know. When I was working, people would email me. They'd say, hey, Zenobia, bring my pen back up to the 3rd floor. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. But as a writer, I tell people I don't think until I have my pen in my hand.
Right.
So when you ask me what inspires you, so many things. I go to dance, when people dance, ballet, because the human body is such a beautiful thing.
Correct.
When you really think about the human body and what we put it through and what
Correct.
It's done for, so I try to honor my body.
Correct.
So
Same here.
Life itself. Yes.
No, you're absolutely right.
It's
Interestingly enough, if it's something that you just said about being unpredictable, that sparked something. I'm getting ready to post it on Facebook, and it was "Life is like the weather, unpredictable."
Yes.
And that's what I'm getting ready to put on Facebook. Life is like the weather, unpredictable.
It is, and you know what? It's as a writer, things gravitate to you,
right?
And I tell people, and my husband's like, "You got to write that down." But puddles, life is like there will always be puddles.
Right.
There will always be things you did not, and when it's raining outside,
right,
and you don't have on your boots, and you accidentally, and your foot gets wet. But that's how life is. There are always going to be things that happen that were not in the plan.
Correct.
So you have to learn to look out for the puddles because they're going to come. But then always remember, the sun's going to come back out.
Correct.
And it's going to be gone, and you won't even be able to remember where that puddle was. So the objective is to really stay calm because the sun's going to come back out. So
I know that's right. Stay calm. See, I might put that on there too. Stay calm because the sun is going to come back out.
People always say, "Dang, Zenobia, that's like a T-shirt." And you know what?
That's right.
The next time you see me in Harlem, I will have a lot more T-shirts because I really quote. I used to dismiss the quotes that I wrote, but the second book, Prose and Light, has quite a few quotes in it because that's just how I think.
Stay calm. Wait a minute. Stay calm because I'm gonna put your name under it. Stay calm because the sun. I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, but the sun is going to come back out. So for those of you who do follow me on Facebook, you'll see it as I'm doing this. But I'm doing it right now, and I'm gonna put Zenobia's name on it. Zenobia.
Put Zenobia the poet.
Zenobia the poet. Okay, Zenobia the poet. There you go. Right. So, all right. Now with poetry, I mean, a lot of times when people think of poetry, they always think of rhyming. They don't think in terms of, sometimes poets don't rhyme. A poem doesn't necessarily rhyme at all. Right. So talk about
go ahead.
Talk about the different genres of poetry.
No, they don't. They don't have I mean, that's the beauty of when you write a fiction novel or any novel. I mean, the editing is intense because they're checking the spelling and the punctuation and the period. Yeah, but poetry is free reign. You write it how you feel it. So that's one of the reasons I really like poetry. And I write in prose because you'll never... I'll tell you what happens, Mark. When I do poetry readings, wherever I go, when I read at the end, I always get, oh, that's what I hear from the audience. Oh, wow, wow. Because what happens is, and that's my objective, I want you to walk away feeling something, to have felt something. You know, for me to have, when I read the photograph, for you have to have thought about things in a different way. You know, I want you to think. I want you to think about life or what I experienced in that moment. So I write what they basically call, I write in prose. You will understand. I mean, because everybody hears the poems that they rhyme and they said it's a lot of words in it, but you don't actually know what it's about. That's the best way, you know, I can say it. And I give homage and honor to those poets, but everybody has their own style. And this is basically my style.
Well, like it's like in terms of like, and the other, you were just talking about interpretation and feeling and meaning. When I was pledging my fraternity, there's a few poems we had to learn, but there's two that sticks out. One is If by Rudyard Kipling. Right. And the other one is Invictus. William Henley, I have to think of his last name. But like if is like if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself, and because you get into situations in life, sometimes the poem will speak to you.
Yes. Yes.
So there are times when I've gotten into situations where I've actually had to go through if. I've had to go back through and Invictus is William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul, so forth and so on and so on. But a lot of times it's like poems, you know, sometimes a poem will get you through.
Yes. Yes. And it's one of the things, whatever gets you through.
That's
yes.
Right.
Yes, whatever gets you through it. Yes, yeah, and I see you did memorize them. Oh
yeah. We had no choice.
yes.
Yeah, we had no choice but to memorize those. So, but yes, and I know it's interesting you bring that up because they're like, if you're in the situation or back up is against the wall, and sometimes you know you just start thinking about things, to know them by memory and not have to go find it to read it. You know that's even helpful as well. So now your second book. Yeah, go ahead.
Not to interrupt, but Mark, that's because it's become a part of you.
Correct.
You know? It's become a part of you. And things become a part of you subconsciously. Yes.
Correct. I mean, I've been in a situation where I've been lied on, and I had to go back to that poem. You know, I went back because there's a line in there about being lied on. Don't deal in lies. I mean, it's like, so I know exactly what you're saying. So in terms of now, because I know you're experiencing like the Black experience, which is, like I said, that's what I love about this cover. With everything that we have going on now in terms of, you should have a whole lot of things that you could write about if you choose to.
Well, and that is a challenge for me too, because like anything, you have to know your audience.
Correct.
And I mean, when I write and the things I publish are maybe a little more outspoken if you get the books and read them. But if you come to an open mic or a poetry reading, I may not read the controversial things.
Correct.
I never want to alienate, because I really don't see in color. I mean, I'm definitely part of the Black experience, and I suffer, and I know the atrocities that we as a people have gone through. And one of the sayings or quotes in my book as, we have remained humble and just a great people in spite of all the things we've gone through. I mean, if you look at the cover, you were talking about the lady. I mean, we went through so many atrocities.
Correct.
Slave plantations from Monday to Saturday, but on Sunday we went to church, got dressed up, and you could never tell because in those walls we were free to be ourselves. So in that kind of a vein, I mean, I did an open mic last night at Barnes & Noble. So I knew my audience. I mean, I didn't pick what I was going to read till I got there.
Right.
I mean, because you want to read stuff that resonates with everybody.
Correct.
You know? I mean, I don't just inadvertently say, okay, I'm not going to read anything about the Black experience, or I'm going to read all, I don't do it like this, but I still have the best way I can say it is I have a heart for the audience.
Correct.
And I think, and Mark, I know you know this, the key thing when you're out there, wherever you are, if you're going to a restaurant, a bank, wherever you are, always know your audience. Always know where you are. And I think, for me, I've been successful in life, not on a monetary standpoint like that, but I always am aware of where I am. Always know where you are. And another thing, always know where you are and who you are. That
is correct. And let me tell you, you're absolutely right, because I teach public speaking, and that is one of the principles in there is know your audience. In other words, whenever we're coaching public speakers or we're teaching public speakers, you ought to know before, if anybody asks you to present or they want you to be the presenter or the speaker or whatever, you need to do your research of who's going to be there. Like how many is going to be there, what is going to what is the gender makeup, males, females, racial, you need to understand. Matter of fact, you need to get there early and scout the room out. You need to get there and get a feel for what is the room like. And so for all that needs to go, and like for people who speak, all those things need to go into that. It's not just a matter of, okay, somebody asks you to speak and you do nothing until that day and just walk in there. I could not agree with you anymore in terms of, yes, we do have to know our audience.
Right. Exactly. I mean, like even last night I did Barnes & Noble, but it was people that spoke that you could tell that they didn't do that homework, or even they came with, okay, this is what I'm going to do, but it's not going to relate to the audience unless it's something they understand.
Correct.
Or are about. Right?
Now, you're talking about the monetary, which is true. I mean, for any artist, you may or may not be a zillionaire. But when it comes down to poetry books, are poetry books harder to move than, say, a novel or fiction or what have you?
No, I don't think so. A good example of Amanda Gorman. Beautiful lady. Beautiful speaker. I mean, I think that poem she read at the last, how many years ago, I mean, it resonated with everyone.
Correct.
Yeah, she sold buku books after that, and some of them, and I looked at them, they were really little, maybe like 5 by 6.
Right.
And every page had one sentence on it, but it was who. As a writer or an artist, you are not selling your book, you are selling you.
Correct.
People want to know who you are. Hey, look at Snoop. I mean, everybody
That's right.
His background. Now, he's everywhere.
Yes, he is.
You can't tell on the TV. It does not matter because it's him.
That is correct.
Right.
That
he can
is
sell paper towels.
correct.
He can sell paper towels now.
I mean, you're right. He's doing the what was it? The beer, or was it Coors? Not
my
Coors.
gosh!
I think it was Coors. He did something with what's the lady named the famous lady? I mean,
Martha Stewart?
Yes, Martha Stewart. He's doing something now with the quarterback with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's doing the show, the talent show. Because you're right, he is everywhere.
We could spend an hour talking about that. But yeah, right. The point is, he remained true to who he was.
Correct.
And that's the key. You maintain who you are. That's the objective. And the world is either going to accept you or not. And Snoop was always, hey, this is me.
That is correct.
For nobody. And I'm the same way. I am Zenobia the poet. And if I'm on a stage in New York City or I'm the same poet. I'm going to read the same poetry. I mean, I'll take into account my audience.
Right.
But you never change you adjust to your audience, but you don't change who you are.
Correct. That is absolutely right. Now, so listening audience, I always tell you, I hope you've been with me since 6, but I definitely hope you've been with me since 7 because my guest has joined me. And my guest this morning is Zenobia, the poet. And we're talking about poetry. We're talking about life. We're talking about, publishing, if you want to write a book. Because, that's my next thing in terms of, I know you said you were a poet for life, but did you see yourself becoming an author in terms of a published work? Because I think you said you just kind of entered the publishing arena. Did you somewhere along the line say, I'm going to have a published book one day?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. You have to have a goal, and that was always my goal. And I was a public housing manager for years, and everybody knows you meet people along life's journey that will inspire you and keep you going. But years ago, I met a gentleman, and he told me, he said, that first book, as a matter of fact, I was a public housing manager in Tampa, Florida, near Ybor City. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, that first book's going to be your hardest book, but once you get that first one done, you're off.
Right.
And that's it. And years later, like right now, I'll often think back to what he said because, like anything you do, the more you do it, the better at it you get. That first one was hard. Prose and Life is my second book, and it was a lot easier. Because I kind of knew I had a publishing house, but it gets easier. It definitely gets easier.
So this question I usually ask somewhere near the end, but I'm going to ask it now. When the box of books, Reflection of Us, came to your door, and you opened the box and you had your copies of it and you have Zenobia on the bottom of it, what was that feeling like for you?
Like giving birth. I have to tell you.
Exactly.
It is exactly like giving birth. Because I used to say the whole time I was writing and trying to get it all together to be a published author, I used to say, I'm pregnant with this book. I'm pregnant. And then I went to the Schomburg Center up in Harlem. That's what I said. You have to get out. That's all
right.
I said. You have to get out as an artist. And it was an author there, and it was a tribute to Toni Morrison at the Schomburg in New York. And I said to her, I'm pregnant with this book. She looked at me with her face and said, you need to give birth. And, from the time she said that, I never said that again. Because she was right. I had gotten comfortable in saying that. Long story short, the day that box came, I knew it was coming. I told myself, a box is coming, a box is coming. It was the best feeling I have ever had. One of the best feelings I have ever had. To actually hold something you had been dreaming about.
Correct.
All your life. Yes. And you can't put a price tag.
No, you can't. The reason I asked is because I have 2 musical works out. One was 2011, one was 2013. And at the time we were using CDs, everything wasn't downloaded. So I actually had a physical CD in my hand with the cover and my name on it and everything. And that's why I always ask the question, because I know how I felt when I opened the box and saw the CD wrapped in cellophane and the cover and my name on it and the 11 tunes or whatever it was on the back of it. So
right.
You're absolutely right. So my next question, along that same lines is, do you ever read or open the book and go back through it and don't even really kind of remember writing? It's like, I can't believe I wrote this. Like I don't even remember writing this. It's almost like a surreal experience of, wow, these words came through me and I didn't even, because I'll listen to my music sometimes and say, wow, I can't believe I played that.
Right. So you're a musician, Mark?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I read my work a lot, and I think in life you have to be your biggest fan.
Correct.
Like so many things, if you don't love yourself, or as an artist, if you don't love your work and really believe in your work, you really can't expect the world. And that comes through in your writing.
Correct.
Before I had an ISBN number and I was going to book fairs and before I was published, I would actually sit down and read my work and go, wow, that's really good.
Right.
I really like that.
That's right.
I have even read some things and said, did I write that?
That's the feeling I'm talking about. Right there.
Right. Did I write that?
Right.
Especially if it's a while since I read it.
Right.
Learn 6 months go by and I haven't read it, and I read it, I'm like, I wrote that? Now, I'll never remember the time and place, but I will remember the space.
Correct.
Like, I'll remember what city I was in, that kind of who I was with, when I wrote that piece. I love traveling like so many people do, and traveling really inspires me because it's a different dynamic,
Correct.
A different surrounding. You're excited about being there, so it's just a great time to write. But, yeah, I love my work. I'll be honest with you. I love it, and I love sharing it. I mean, because the current editor I had, she said something. I said to her, I said, well, I want to put this poem in the book, but it's kind of old. I wrote this when I was like 20. She said, Zenobia, you got to remember, when they read it, they're reading it for the first time.
That is right.
That's right. She said, but they never read that. They don't know if you wrote that yesterday or 20 years ago. And I had to think. I said, she's absolutely right.
No, she is, because one of the songs, matter of fact, one of the first songs on my first CD was the song I wrote whenever I was like 17, 16 years old.
Right,
and
right.
that CD didn't come out till 2011. And I was 16 back in like 1979, 1980, somewhere
Right.
it was 19. So she's absolutely right. That's my point. The listener or the reader, they don't know that unless you date it. And even if you date it doesn't matter.
Right, it doesn't. And the other thing, sometimes at the bottom of my poems, I'll write, who the poem was dedicated to,
right.
and why I wrote it. Some things I will do that. But I said I was going to do a T-shirt that said, I'd rather be writing. Because I really enjoy it. It's just you're a musician and an artist, it's just wonderful to do stuff you love and look out into the audience and see people that have actually been moved by your music or your poetry or your art, whatever it is.
No, you're absolutely correct.
People, you can't be in it for the money. I mean, it's great. For me, it's like my son is a comedian, believe it or not. He's a stand-up comedian, but he has a college degree, and he's great. And I get inspired by him so often. He's from that other generation.
Right.
He's just about 30. He said, Mom, hey, some books you're going to have to give away. And, he's right.
He is.
Sometimes I give stuff away. I mean, you have to. Money can't be your central motivator because you won't be successful.
Well, I was reading something. I always open the show reading from two books, and one of them is from Iyanla Vanzant, Until Today. And
right.
The passage that I read this morning spoke to that. That's exactly what it spoke to about passion. Like if you're not going to do. Matter of fact, I'm looking it up again. As I speak.
Oh, I'd be honored. To hear it.
In terms of when you're doing something for passion, money usually is not the driver. Now, that's not to say you won't get money from doing it, but it's usually not the driver. And many times you will get questioned. Matter of fact, let me see. She says here. The passion represents those things that you pursue for the sheer joy of it. Those things that you do that make you feel alive and meaningful, valuable and worthy. Most of us are frightened away from or talked out of our passion. We are made to feel it is inappropriate or useless. So what we're talking about here is just that. I mean, for me, I actually spend more money promoting the show. I don't get paid for this. This is a passion for me. And when my CDs went out, I actually spent more money promoting them than I took back in. But
right.
So he's absolutely right. There are times when you have to give things away, but like you said, it's priceless. I have met. This is my 23rd year on the air. I have met so many wonderful people. It's not funny.
Right.
Over this 23, 24-year period, because the show started in 2001. Over this period of time, I have met so many wonderful people. Some I've never seen in person, only on the telephone. Others I've seen, we've connected, or we've stayed in touch with each other. But you can't put a price tag on that.
No, you can't. You absolutely cannot put a price tag on that. And I'll tell a small story to you and to your audience. I volunteer at a handicap facility in Philadelphia that services a younger population. I wouldn't say it's a old folks home, but they're handicapped. And they take very good care of them. And out of the blue, I mean, they knew I was a poet, but when I went there, I did gardening with them. And it was like 7 or 8, and somebody said, "Oh, you got to bring your book and read to us." I'm like, "Okay." I can do that.
That's right.
And, they were all there and around, and they asked him, "Do you want to do gardening first? Do you want to hear Zenobia read her poetry?" And they were like, Zenobia read her poetry. So I read it to them, and I must say that was one of the best audience and attentive audience I have ever had. And it was one lady, I don't ever think I've ever heard her speak, and I will remember this I never heard her speak. I don't know if it was because she, medically could not speak or whatever, but she was able to call me over and get out, "I want a book."
Wow.
So you can't I told them I didn't have enough books for everybody. I said, "Well, next week when I come, I said, raise your hand if you want a book." And they all, like 4 people, I said, "Well, next week when I come, I will make sure I bring a book for you."
Wow.
So, the impact that had on me as a writer, as, writing being my lifelong passion, is immeasurable, immeasurable. When I have kids come up to me and say, "Oh, you're a poet," or it's just a beautiful feeling. I never gotten that anywhere in anything I've ever done in life. Definitely not in that 9 to 5.
That's right.
When they pull you out of that chair and say, "We don't need you anymore," or you walk out the door, they put another person right back there. So I always feel that my books will be my legacy. When I'm not here, somebody somewhere will probably get moved. They'll pick it up and read a poem, and that's all I could ever want from writing.
Well, that's the thing that for me, and you went where I normally wind up going as well in terms of books. Because just like we were talking about the photograph, now for those of us who are artists or whatever, our work will be our legacy, because it might be 100 years from now, and your book, that reflection of us, might be in somebody's attic. Or it might be in somebody's basement. It might be in a locker or a trunk or something in there. And somebody's going through it and they're like, "Oh, look at this book." And so, yeah, for those of us who are artists, we do have an opportunity to leave a legacy there, because we'll be dead and gone, but our work will still be around. Like you were talking about, you collect books. And some of these authors that we collect books from have been gone.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Musicians,
Yes.
Everybody, you go on the internet or Zoom or, YouTube, everything. It's always quotes and quotes. But I read one this week that really kind of impacted me. I was like, I never thought about it like that. And that's the beauty of writing, is to have life experiences interpreted by another artist.
Correct.
But it said, think about 100 years from now. 100 years from now, some people won't even remember your name. All those things you were craving, the car, the clothes, that's not even going to matter. It's the people you impacted
Correct.
and helped along the way. That's what's going to matter. How many times you hugged your grandkids, your kids, the things you said, that's what's going to matter.
Correct.
You and me, and everybody in this audience knows there are people that have gone out of our lives, that something that they said to you, the way they touched you, the way they hugged you, you still remember. And you will alwaate remember. So those are the things that are important. And I have a poem in one of my books called Things. Everybody's got too many things. This
Correct.
This desire. It's a saying I say that make sure you take care of the things you have before you crave more things. Treasure the things you have, the people around you now, because we always want more. But really, most of the time, what we have already is enough. It's enough. And, of course, that's part of a poem I have.
Now, you see, it's interesting because I know I found all of my the song titles are related to an experience. All of the songs, I have between the 2 CDs, it's like 23 or 24 songs. And every title came from an experience, a life experience. And my guess is with the poems, it's the same thing. Matter of fact, not only just the title, but the poem itself comes from a life experience.
It does. It does. Because when I do an event, I never get up and just say, okay, I'm going to read this. I give them background on the poem because it gives more meaning to it. because it definitely came from something that impacted me, whether it was a person, a thing. I always give the backstory. There's a backstory to every, that as a musician. There's a backstory. It's always a backstory.
That is correct. Okay. My first CD was titled "Go Up on the Third Limb." That's the title of the CD, and one of the songs on there is that. But that came from a story my mother always told me about experience she had when they were little. When she was a little girl playing with her brothers and cousins and everything, that came from that story. And as it turned out, there was this little tune that went with it. So I centered the entire song around that tune. She would tell me it was a song that they would sing in code whenever they were about to get in trouble, or whenever one of them's mother was coming with the switch. And it was a song they would sing in code. And I did a whole entire album or a CD and a song off of that tune. It's called "Go Up on the Third Limb."
Right.
So you're absolutely right in terms of there's a backstory to each project.
It is.
Do you have your book somewhere near you? Because I know you read the photograph.
Yeah.
All right. So this is an opportunity because I love to hear, and the last couple of weeks have been poets, as a matter of fact. I love to hear.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I love for the audience to hear the author read his or her work, because you can put the tone and the inflection and everything that was going through your head when you wrote it as you read it.
Okay.
So if you have a particular...
I figured you'd say that, Mark. Yeah.
So
I figured you'd say... What I have is... I have a few pieces from my second book, Prose and Light, which I'm working towards having it out by the end of the year. I'll definitely give you a heads up so you can kind of mention it out there. And then I'll read a few pieces from, and my things are short, so don't think you're going to lose interest. I'll read a couple pieces from Reflections of Us, which is, that's my baby. I think the first one will always be special to you.
Right.
So let me... Okay, I'll start off with, this is from Reflections of Us, but it'll give an answer to, I think, the first question you asked me at the interview. You asked me what it meant to be a poet and would I, write a novel. It's entitled Who I Am. You asked me who I am. I am a poet. I have no patience for endless rambling words, sentences, paragraphs, or chapters with beginnings and no endings. I am a poet. Life comes to me in fragments of joy, moments of pain, and seconds of pleasure. That's entitled Who I Am. This is from, thank you. This is also from Reflections of Us. It's entitled Too Much. And I live in an urban environment. I think one of those intros talks about how I get inspired from being in an urban environment. But, there's always homeless people all around.
Right.
And I can't help but be impacted by that. And this is one of those poems. It's entitled Too Much. With the creases of time lining your face like some picture in a frame, I see you. If I get close, I can smell the sweet taste of wine between your lips. To ease the pain of too much regret, laced with too much hurt, too much, too little, too late. And my poems, they have different topics.
Right.
This is from Reflections of Us. It's entitled Morning Coffee.
All right.
Morning coffee and scratchy kisses, glances and little touches, deep kisses and dirty dishes and frameless pictures, dresses that don't fit and kids who are always having one, bills and pills, papers and thrills, empty tanks, empty hearts, careless words, once deep love, memories of deep kisses. Now going completely to the left, I don't know if people remember, Sean Bell was a young man that was killed in 2006.
That was like right before his wedding?
Yes. And you know how many years has that been? I will never, that's a hurt that will always linger in my heart. And I did not know Sean Bell, but I am Black American, and I will never forget it. And this poem was dedicated to Sean Bell. There will be no rose petals for Mr. Bell, no ice cream, no cake. Today we will not pick rice from his bride's hair or gather flowers in the wind. No dancing, no toast. The gown remains on the hanger. The cake was never eaten. The garter never tossed. They lost in the dark along with the dreams. We pick our battles, and sometimes when you are Black in America, your battles pick you. Dedicated to the memory of Sean Bell, who was shot by the police in New York City in the borough of Queens on November 25th, 2006, following his bachelor party. Yes.
Yes, I remember that
America,
well.
Sometimes your battles pick you.
That's right. Wow.
So that gave you a good indication of my poetry runs the whole gambit. It's whatever touches my heart.
I know that's right. So we're down to the last few minutes, and what I do here is I give you the opportunity to promote. And the only thing you cannot say during the promotion period is the dollar amount. But anything, any shout-outs, any upcoming book signings, any spoken word, any I know spoken word. What did you call it for you had last night? Open mic. That's what they'll keep
open mic.
So any open mics, any spoken words, any of that you want to promote, the only thing you cannot say is the price. If you have a website or any contact information, feel free. I'm going to turn the mic off, and it's yours for the next few minutes.
Okay. Number one, thank you, Mark. And I have to tell the audience, I must have met Mark for like maybe 50 seconds. When you're at book fairs, boy, people are giving you their cards left and right. And when you get back home, you're like, okay, who was that? But Mark was very impactful. I said, if I don't do anything or if I lose everybody else's card, I'm going to make sure I keep Mark's card. So, Mark, thank you so much for having me on the show. I mean, it's absolutely been an honor to be here. Like I said, Prose and Light will be out probably the end of December. It's entitled Prose and Light. It's a black and white cover. Reflections of Us is available everywhere. Barnes & Noble, I give a shout-out to Barnes & Noble in Philadelphia because Barnes & Noble has been a big supporter of mine. I've done book signings there. I've sat in the window at Barnes & Noble promoting book month or whatever. I just love Barnes & Noble. I'm available on Amazon, Walmart. You can follow me on Instagram. If you put my name in, Zenobia, it'll come up. I definitely appreciate people following me. I'm not really big into social media, but I know what a presence it is in our community and in the world, so definitely. I want to read one poem, and I think I have enough time from the new book. It's called 20 Little Pieces, and it's dedicated to every child of war in the world. I did not know you. I had not touched your hand or wiped your mouth or held you in my arms when you were sick or seen you laugh and play, but the mother in me has a broken heart for you. I cried for you today, so much life ahead, but today you play with angels and you dance among the stars. And today, 20 little pieces of my heart were chipped away. And we will always miss you, for you are every child, and I am every mother. And today I cried for you. So I ask America and I ask the world, do not forget about the children in Gaza. We cannot see their faces on our screens every day and not be impacted by this. So whatever we can do as a country, as a person, to kind of end this, let us do it. And I think that is one of the most important things that touches my heart today because those children are so innocent.
That's right.
And the one quote I'd like to leave you with is the one everybody loves now, and take it to heart, write it somewhere. It'll be in the second book. You can be one person in the world, but then you can also be the world to one person. So as you go out into the day, call that tech cash lady that's ringing you up, call her by her name, look her in the eye, and always remember that you may not change that big world, but you can change the world that you see around you.
I know that's right. You are absolutely right. Let me see if I can do this, because a lot of times when I try to play the music, you all wind up with a lot of static. Let me see if I can do this. That's a lot of static for you, right? Were you receiving a lot of static? Can you hear the music?
Yeah, but I heard a lot of static too.
Yeah, can you hear the music now?
No.
Okay, because for some reason, whenever I try to put the music on the phone, there's a whole lot of static. So, because I'm actually putting Go Up on the Third, and I'm going to play it in the next hour. But that's what I'm closing out this interview with, since I was talking about it. But in any event, Zenobia, I had a wonderful time chatting with you. I record the shows, and I actually put them up on my YouTube channel, and I'll send you a copy of the link. And I am backed up. You'll be my third week, so I got 2 more weeks I need to put up plus yours. So I'll either put all 3 of them up at the same time, or either.
Okay, Mark, that's fine. I know how life has a way of getting in the way.
It sure does. But you will ultimately get a copy of the MP3 and the YouTube link, and once you receive that, you are free to share them in any manner you choose.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
All right.
All right, Mark. Well, goodbye, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining me. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right. Take care now.